So we're just talking about yesterday's prerequisite, like what are things do we need to require in order to
Mhm.
achieve the batch class.
Yeah,
And
I went through that.
yeah,
So
this is all you
by
went through.
batch also I went through.
Mhm.
Advantages, yeah,
Yeah.
I went through that millions of records instead of 20,000, 20,000 or 50,000. We can do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, start data query. Yeah, start prepare the records. Yeah, implement interface. That's where I stop, I think.
Okay. So basically, we have start and execute and finish. These are three important methods
Hmm.
because we saw in the interface class, right? So any interfaces we have and what are the methods is defined there should be implemented in the implementations class.
Okay.
So that way, start, execute, and finish three methods we have there. So for
Okay.
sure,
Yeah.
all these three methods should be implemented in our Apex class, that is batch Apex class.
Okay.
So we have a syntax here. Um,
Okay.
Specifically, it talks about each. So we prepare the data in a start method. So that start method, whatever we prepare.
Select
So
query.
so two things we have there. So one is either you do a start method to have a database dot query locator, or
Mm-hmm.
you have iterable object. So both
Okay.
tries to bring the list of records. So
Okay.
however, we are preparing the data here. So the preparing data is if you use iterable class or iterable object of type of pulling the records, it is up to 10,000 records only.
Okay.
Only a query locator can you get you 50 million records.
Okay.
It's not the same as like iterable.
Okay.
So so difference between these two is they can bring only so the iterable class I think maximum they can how a normal query would run. So they would try I think not 10,000. Let's put this. Iterable class has a limit of 50,000 I think. Iterable. Iterable limit in batch packs. Okay. I think if the circle is retrieved, so then it is 50,000 records. In one query, we can get 50,000 records. Look at this. If it is goes behind, then it will say that 50,001 record, then it's too many query rows.
Yeah, we got that error last time when you're trying to insert.
Yeah. So now what we'll have is, so let's put the point here because this 50 million is for query locator
Okay.
and iterable is just like normal query. What you do it, it's not that great. Like, so to write a 50,000 records, why you have to come here all the way?
Yeah.
So this iterable can do 50k records. 50 million records and 50 records, huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, there we prepare the data, and whatever the prepared data that will be sent to the execute. So always we need to have the context. See, this batchable context is that where are you, or the current execution of the program where it stands. So this batchable context would hold it. So all the
Okay.
three methods they will hold. So
Same
from
context.
yeah, context we should hold the context so that the current context will pass in the batch apex.
Okay. Okay.
So batch epic. So we have context and so why in the execute we have a list is whatever you process here, right? The 50 million records. So we
Mhm.
have to pass chunk by chunk. So this list scope will have it. Let's say you're
Okay.
dealing with account object, then you have to have a list of account here. Because this database require look at whatever it is, it will return records. They will surely return the records.
Okay.
Because here is all a void method. And here is a return type is either query locate or a iterable. So basically they are having a return type here. If you use
Mhm.
database require locator, yes, you try to return the list of records.
Okay.
Basically, we're trying to return list of records, and that return whatever it is, it knows immediately to push to the scope. So let's say you are having a 1 lakh records, you are running it, or like say 100k records, you're running it.
Okay.
So if you give a size of 200, so then it runs 500 times. If you give 2000 as a size, maximum you can use 2000, I think. So that time 50 times it runs. So first 2000 records it will pull up from here and then it goes here and then your execute it does. And the next
Okay.
next 4000 goes and then it can execute like it's like a for loop type. Up to
Okay.
50 up to 50 times it runs the 2000 records.
Okay.
Where start method is only once and your finish method is only once, but your execute method keeps running multiple times.
Okay.
Depends on the record which was left over. Okay. So
Okay.
you can start from the batch size as 1 and till it can go up to 2000. That is the size. If you don't specify anything as a size, it is by default it's 200.
Okay.
So that is the important points. And I think you can see the logic which you written there. So that will help you.
Okay.
Mm. So let me open the R. Go to developer console. So this is a batch class distribution. What is use cases? We need to update all the customer records, either a business customer or an individual customer and we don't care about the records. What is the size? And we have to add a points. Let's say we have a points particular field, and for every customers we're gonna add 5 points. If this is the points which help you out. So while they do a purchase, so they can be redeeming it. So like as every customers would have a points, so they can redeem on their own whenever they're doing a purchase. So flatly, if I wanted to give 5 points to all the customers in the McDonald's, so what I'm doing is I wanted to give 5 points flatly to people. So I created a field called points yesterday in account object. So now here's the one which I'm trying to deal with. So this where you try to prepare a data. So this is start method. In the start method, I've used the query locator as a return type. So then I should use this statement because whatever you're giving here, that should be written here. So if I use iterator, I should be using type of iterator only and then returning them. So query locator I've used. So the query locator here. So I'm passing this query and saying that record type not equal to restaurant because our intention is to update only the business and individual users, not the restaurant.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm saying that not equal to this ID, bring everyone.
Okay.
Or if you want to specifically give this only business and individual, get both the record type ID and say that where record type is equal to this and the another one. So you can give them.
Okay.
It depends on what you try to filter it out here. So the filtered records you are trying to do a query here. Now the bunch
Okay.
of records we are passing to this ACK list, which is a list of account. So we know if you give a size of 200, 100, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, based on that the batch would execute.
So the return will do the after return it will execute, and that return will pass it into this parameter
Yeah,
execute.
yeah, it will
Okay.
go.
Okay.
So assumption is here if you have millions of records also, whatever your batch size is there, so it
Hmm.
will keep executing that whatever the size you given.
Okay.
It's just like it is the a bunch of records where you have and whatever the size you given, it will pull the size from here. Okay, now if you give 200, the first 200 goes here, and the
Okay.
next offset is moves from 200 to 400. Okay, next, and then 400 to 600. They intelligently they run.
Oh, okay. Internally it will take.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
just like we give a pocket money to you and you keep reducing them,
Okay.
whatever the size I give. So it's just like that. From a start method, it just reduces the count, whatever the size given here.
Got it.
So how do we give sizes this way? Whether it is there or not, let's see. This is a size which I don't want to distinct. Call the batch apex and you say database.execute batch and then you give the class name of this and say size is 200. So then 200 records will be running in one chunk.
One chunk. Okay.
Yeah. So if I say one, so then if I have a 200 records 200 times, this batch will be running. So you should make sure why the batch size should be less. So this can go up to 2000 also.
Okay.
So
Max is 2. Default
maximum,
is 2.
yeah. If you don't specify anything, still it will execute. But the default to take that's 200 as size.
Okay.
So this is what I was saying. And what else? Yeah. So you process the record inside. You have looked through the accounts and you're updating a list. So you're putting it into a try catch. So then you're doing this activity. So finish is actually what you mean by is post commit logic. Maybe after completing this batch, so you have some logic to pull up the batch logic and then send an email. You can do this,
Okay.
or you wanted to change this batch one batch to another batch. That also you can do it.
Okay.
So now what today I'm going to do is this batch epics we have, I want to schedule them. So this is something I'm running manually here, right? From developer console, I'm trying to run it manually. But this is
Yeah.
not the case every time we would try to run from the um, like this developer console. So
Yeah.
what should have in order to have a scheduled apex? See, scheduled apex we can do in multiple ways. So let me open our so yesterday I was showing if your batch is running. Um, so where do you see? If you go to the jobs and you see apex jobs. So these are the one which I left in admin class to indicate you saying that this chapter, right? So we see a debug logs and emails, but we saw audit trail, we saw outbound message when you're doing workflow, schedule jobs, apex jobs. These are two things which is missing. So yesterday when I tried to execute the batch apex, so I were able to go to the batch apex and apex jobs and look at this. So this is a class yesterday run, and it had only one batch because you given the size as 200. In our account, we don't have 200 records. So within that
Okay.
200 only it is. So only one batch it run. If it is 1000 records, 5 times will have run. Getting?
How to
So
create the job?
no, you don't create. You just simply execute them by this developer console. See, if you execute this, there would be a log would be running, right?
Okay.
Hmm? There will be a log would be running. Let's say today I'm going to change it to 5 points to 10 points.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to change it to 10 points.
And
So,
you execute now and it
so,
should.
so this is basically I'm updating the record.
Okay.
Hmm? Now, if I just go to this,
Hello.
hey Dushira,
Hi.
yeah, just I'm just going to recapping onto the batch epics and how this will be effectively used in schedule epics. So that is the class which is going on now.
Okay.
Okay. So yesterday we given us 5 points, right? Today I'm just giving modifying it as 10 points. But this is something that earlier we have 200 size, and I'm giving 2 as size. To execute a batch, so call the class name and then instance an object variable and then give this. So database.execute batch will do the extra, no, will call the batch epics. So look at I'm going to give 2. So that means if you have 20 records, 10 times it will run because your size says 2. So let's see. Early, it was batch default size as 200, so only one time it ran. Let's see how many time now it runs. To see any results, maybe sometimes you not turn to a debug logs on, um, where you can see from the logs. Like see this serial batch chunk. You see this. Every serial batch chunk is one by one it is running. So that means 2 records run, another 2 records. So each chunk it has been giving a log here. You see this. So that means if you come and see here, maybe more than 10 times. See, look at this. 15 times the batch is run. That means that we have a 30 records, I think.
Okay.
Really? So because you given size is 2. The same which is last time is 1. Why? Because that time 200 records you have given in one chunk. So it is all your wish how many records in one chunk it has to go. Sometimes in integrations we send one by one also, Why? Why? Because so the each batch has to process and then get executed, go hit the third party and get results. So this would have a minimum time would require. If 2000 records in one go you give it, so I hit to the third party system, so they should respond in again in a fraction of a second. If they don't reply within a fraction of seconds, so we are waiting for them to get a response from those system. So what happens? We wait for them, they don't get delayed. And then what happens? Here we say, request timeout. Okay? So we wait for those system within 10 seconds they don't reply. So what you say is, okay, read timeout error because they didn't. We are waiting for them. They didn't respond us. So this could be the case. So generally in integration class when we're running in, so we know when you go out of the systems, their resources and the time constraint, we have to wait for them. The results should come. If they all are in a fraction of a second, you can run in. You can increase the batch size. But if you're in third-party systems, which the results are slowing down, so better give as size as less 5, 10 like that, and you can execute. If it is millions of records, also you have to wait properly because the advantage of the batch, what you know, if one batch fails, so that will not impact other guys. So every chunk by chunk which is going, if a chunk is getting failed, it's okay, fine, it'll go to next, and if that is failing, it'll go to next. So like that, each and every chunk it will give a respect, and then it goes on to the next things. It doesn't terminate the program there and then exit out. So only for that particular chunk it will fail and go to the next chunk. The chunk which I'm indicating is the size which you given. So let's say 10 you given, the 10 records if I have any issues. So it does with that. If something goes wrong, it'll go to the next 10 records. Like that it is. So any questions here?
No. No.
Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is, so schedule apex we can do it in multiple ways. So look at this, the way we have a schedule apex. If I click on a button on schedule apex, here also from the UI we can schedule it. So first thing it will ask you, okay, choose the class. You don't have any class. You need to have a scheduled apex should be set. There's two types we can do it. If you have a scheduled class written, from here you can set it out. You say that all through the days you run, this is started, this is ended. Not weekly, you run monthly once, or you run daily. Daily if you want to run, you put everything as a checkbox as true. And what is the time that you prefer to run? So this, you choose an apex class, you choose a time here. So that way, every class, I mean that particular class would run on this whatever the specified time. So this is one way from a UI we set up it. Or we set from the like how developer console we did it. So like this some we have syntax for the schedule apex we have to do from there. Okay, first let's write schedule apex and then we'll come back to the how do we set it. So what in schedule apex you do it is actually you call a batch class because you are scheduling a time based on that time if this batch class has to run. So schedule class alone it cannot do any a circus there. So it should have a batch class associated to it. Schedule the meaning itself it says about I need to schedule and run on the specific time. Calling whom? The batch you're gonna call them. Okay, let me open a new class. So where I say since I'm dealing with account scheduler class. Okay, this guy is also having an interface. So when I talk about let's talk few points about schedulers. Yeah. So Apex schedulers, what is this it talks about? So if you want to execute or you want to delay the executions when it want to run specific time, so we come to a schedule apex. So in this case what to do is we have an options to choose from the UI and also from the developer console we can schedule it. So as I said that point, how do you invoke is you need to have a method called as or basically how we implemented the batch apex like say database.batch apex we are batchable apex we have interface we implemented. The same way we also have a scheduler implementations we have as an interface. The first point what I wanted to say is um, they let you to delay the execution because you are setting a time And it's not always you saying that okay, go define run in this particular time only. On Monday you can run on this time. On Tuesday you can run on some different time. So likewise, you can schedule them appropriately, and then when you want it to execute, you can delay them whenever you want. Why we're doing this execution is so that we can run the Apex class. Make sense? So basically, let you to execute, and that we're gonna run the Apex class at a specified time, whatever we require. So this is one thing which I wanted to indicate. And the second thing is we have to implement scalable Apex. So should have to implement the scalable Apex interface. So always it'll have a scalable Apex interface. And in this, we have something called as how you have a batchable context. We will have a scalable context. So they also have a execute method, but there's only one method they have. They don't have start or finish something they don't have. So at least they will have an execute methods. So syntax wise, if you see, they also same. Okay, now setting the time, we have we can or we can do in two ways. We can schedule from the UI or we can schedule from developer console by doing it manually. So you need to understand the time, which hours, seconds, all you do, and then you associate. So we'll see that also. Setting the time or getting the schedulable hours. Hmm. So we can do in two ways. One is using the UI or this thing. So let's write syntax for this. So looks all simple logic you're writing. So what if it goes to a new project? What it happens? Sadly, the syntax and everything would be same, but the use case can change. Use case on project to project can change. Idly, you will have the base knowledge as here. So if anyone asks an interview the questions, so you need to apply the base logic. On top of that, the scenario can be explained. For example, someone says, "Hey, process this many records." So first question is, do we need to insert or update or delete? Because absolutely, this is all we are doing in a bunch of records to do some DML activity, right? If someone says, "Let's go delete all the records," go delete 5 million records if they say. So given the conditions, what should I delete with? If you're deleting a record, why should I run a batch? Then I can go for a data loader. No, your limit is now exceeded. So I come to the batch class. And it's not only simple about just giving the, hey, ID, go delete the record. So then you can do in a data loader only. But what if they have a conditions, based on the condition, if it matches, querying multiple objects, and then you make a list of records and then you delete them. So then it makes sense to come to an batch apex. Or else batch apex is not the frequent things people uses unless you have some logic into it. Um, so you just have a comparisons. This could be easily achieved via through data loader or a one-time job. You go to data loader. So this batch class is asked to run often, and often you every day you are trying to pick the records and then you're trying to update some activity if you think, then we require for sure. Because often you cannot go to a data loader and you can manually update it. So this is we're doing is basically to automate the stuff even on your absence. This system should run automatically. Like in some of the systems you have cron jobs, so they run on the daily basis to do some activity on absence also. But basically they like system background jobs which is running every day. Guys, getting? So have you heard about cron jobs, which does in the Windows or any other Linux systems?
Yeah, mine I use Autosys, which is like UI based to run the batch jobs.
Yeah. So yeah. So likewise, we will have some when we compare to our projects, we will have some schedulers or cron jobs types, either from the UI or from the batch. We'll figure it or try to fire from the bat file in Windows if you see. So they all execute on time basis. Like say daily you want to execute or only specific time you want to execute. That's all you decide. Salesforce also allows you to do such activity. Even they can be done in a cron job type. So to automate the stuff, we have all these things. Of course, written a class. To automate this, we are having schedulers only on the specified time you run. So that is the reason we are having this to execute on whatever the time that we choose. Now let's see about the syntax. Same as this. So nothing will change. Global class name implements database we have, right? So the thing that would change here. So instead of batch apex, we say um, scheduler. Scheduler apex class name implements database dot schedulable. Now we have to say that interface is schedulable. So here I've written schedulable. And this has only one method which tries to implement as so we have a method called as execute. So ideally even their return type also should have a global access specifiers and void method. So execute is a method which we have. So in this, if you see, so this guy execute method having a database or batchable context, right? Same thing here, it is schedulable context. So but use schedulable context. You can use database dot schedulable or just simply a schedulable context. So both are fine. So logic goes here. So the logic is basically you're trying to set the batch class. Basically, you're trying to call the batch class here. So ideal way of the schedulable apex is to call a batch class here because you're running a schedulable job to whom? For a batch class when you run it. Alone, these guys cannot do anything. So the purpose of them is to have some a pre-written in a batch apex that you're trying to call them and not run bachang bachang. So that is the purpose we do this. So you can write a logic also here if you wish to have like say acquiring filtering a record. Only these accounts should impact only the now individual customers and only them they are passing to um, some batch class. That also you can do it. It all depends like when you want to execute. So let's go quickly. So this is a scalable. Okay, now I don't have a public here. I will go to global. Global class this and implements. I think all we can have. Let's try to save this. Sorry. So they don't use database. They simply have a scalable context. simply have this. Okay, fine. So now what I want to do is in the execute logic, either you can write an execute logic where you wanted to access few records and um, create few things. So I was saying that your logic goes here. Either you can call the batch apex, or you can write a logic that runs mm, that runs schedule. For example, you're trying to update a record, an opportunity you're trying to do, or you're trying to do an account, or you're trying to do a contact. Whatever you want to do, you want to periodically you want to run and create some records. Even here, you can write a logic. So it is not only the batch apex you can call, you can write a logic also here. That seems to be working. So what is our intention is now? So we called a batch, we written a batch apex that let's call it here. And then we ask them to run it periodically. So for that, what you have to do is, so we have to plan them by calling the class name. So the batch class name could be this one. So instead of you putting in a developer console, you can directly put them here. Okay, that's all. So now you can automate this now. So you have a schedulable class written. See, only when you have a schedulable class, you can go and schedule it here. Look at this. Either from the UI or from the developer console, anything is fine. It's getting. So I am having a schedulable class written. If I call a logic to be executed, where you're trying to call um, I'm just typically calling a batch class here. But still, you can have your own logic also can go here. So there is no issues. Your own logic also can go here. But our ultimate goal is to write a batch apex and that to call them in a schedulable class. So when I schedule this guy, so automatically this guy would run. So that is my ultimate goal. So any questions here?
No, good.
So all this I want to do is instead of I go to a developer console and run this manually, so I wanted to set to be a schedulable apex and they have to run it every time on their own time, which is defined in the either in the UI or in the developer console. Let's quickly see them. How do I schedule them? So this is a schedule class which I have. I say, hey, they run on every day. And so the date is from the, if I start from today, okay, then let it go on to the 22. 4 days, every day night, 12 a.m. you run this. And then you say, what is the batch apex? Sorry, what is the schedule class that you run? So this is when you want to run. And you say, run batch at 12. I'm just giving random here. Run account batch at 12 a.m. So this is for every day I'm thinking. Just click on the save. The thing is, you have scheduled an Apex job, but we are unsure that whether this will run on a time. So how do you go is go to scheduled jobs. These are jobs, right? Go to schedule jobs. You can see them, whatever the scheduled jobs will be here having actively present. Look at this, run batch at 12 a.m. So there's a one submitted on this day. So it is set to start. So maybe tomorrow, my time, today 12 a.m. it will run through. And this is the type is schedule apex. Guys getting? What are the scheduled jobs will be appearing here? Like how do you say that the cron jobs is running for every 24 hours or 15 hours? So you see there wherever it is configured, right? So like that, this is the configured area. So you can see them. So the point here is you can manage them. You have scheduled from the UI, you can manage them. This point, let me make it out here. So it is by doing by UI. So you can schedule the Apex opposite, right? Doing from UI. So we get an option to modify the config of scheduled job. Look at this. We are able to see, right? So I just going to them and then I'm trying to click on modify. So again I came back and I changed the timing here. Again I can save them. So what this meaning is, so whatever scheduled job I can manage them and I can modify the record and update them. But there is something from a developer console also you can do it. But this guys doesn't allow you to manage it. It's all about you have to delete them and reconfigure them. So developer console also you can do it manually and set scheduled jobs. But we can't modify them. The only option is to delete them. So let's say there's a point one, there's a point two. So this is important, guys. So no problem if you have set from the UI, you will have an option to manage. Or if you schedule from the developer console, make sure you have the copy of them. How did you manually change it? And then again redo it. It will work out. No issues there. Let me go again and let me schedule it from the developer console. Let's see how I do it from developer console. So doing it from a developer console, all that you need to know is go call the class name, set the time manually from dev console. So here class name is scheduler class and then have some variable for this ASC account scheduler class, or this could be keyword account scheduler class. So class is highlighted here, instance object. Now, so we have to pass something like a string. So where we say that this is the schedule pattern that you're using it. So that should be in string. For example, so whatever I'm going to write it now. So if you have defined a scheduler classes here, scheduler um, a scheduler in Apex set time so Apex scheduler do so manual run schedule task yeah this but we have to know so what is the time that they're giving it. So we should see in developer guide always. So let me write in first my version and then we'll come there. You're saying when to execute. Let's say you put 20. We'll say what this is first. What is this first character indicates what second I'll say you. So 20. So 13. And let's put 8 and let's put 10. So these are timing that you're giving them and all frequency that you have to run. So if you come to scheduler class, where does it mention the timings? Something like this. So look at this. Yeah, sorry. They want to run this night at the midnight of the third not to 20 September, only on that particular day. So third is the date, and this is the month, and the one-time frequency is 2021. You're gonna run it. You are not running it frequently. If you put a question mark and then don't specify anything, that means there's no end. You keep repeating them. So three and this all these three indicates about the year, date, time, whatever it is, and this indicates the time. The first three indicates hours, minutes, seconds, and this indicates so date and month and then year. Is getting so likewise. What is our class is indicating here? I think so. This indicates so run the con job time.
8:38.
Yeah. So 8:30 we're gonna run, and then
Yeah.
on the 8th,
October
uh,
2nd.
so October 2nd, or something that if I want to run by the March only. Um, no, this is March. Sorry, this is third. According to this, let's go back. Third and the 9th is September, right? So again March. So let's put this as 20. On 20th September, sorry, on 20th March. So if you want to specify the year 2021. Or if you don't know specific, that's okay. So it has done, I mean, it doesn't have any limit. So it keeps running executing every month on 3rd, sorry, 20th. So this is specifically one time it's gonna run. If you put a star here, so that means every month on 20th it'll run.
So
Again,
what happens if you want to keep Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like weekdays, someday, Wednesday or Thursday?
yeah, they have a rules to check it here. Um, so yeah, this is the one which they have a second so
Oh, okay.
indicates.
Got it.
There's a timetable for this. So look at this. If I want to escape them, so you can put a star. That means you want it to run all the time, or only the weekdays and only the weekends, a day of the month, and this particular day I want to run, day of the week. So we have to specify the ranges here.
Okay.
So look at this. This indicates the class runs
Monday.
every day at 1 p.m. So you're just specifying the time. You don't worry about so when it is going to execute. Now look at this. The class run the last Friday of every month at 10 p.m. So this is 10 p.m. But the last Friday, 6 indicates I think Friday. Oh, class runs Monday through Friday. Okay, he's mentioning Monday through Friday. So all these combinations we have, we can just check them. If you wanted to set them manually, so you have to give such expressions there. So when it indicates start, that means it does not have any limit here. So when they put a question mark, they're saying that only on this specific time. Let's say you want to run every day, but only on 2010. Only on to this particular day you'll be running. We don't care about the day or a month, but only on 2020 you'll be running all through 8 p.m. See here, class runs every day at 8 p.m. during the year of 2010. So if you want to run in 29 or 2011 or 2012, so only for that particular year it is running. So if you don't specify anything like year here, so it is running all the days. You're getting? So this where you have to go is for the Apex schedulers. You have to go and see the notes here. What you can do with this? You can have only have 100 scheduled jobs at one time. So you can have too many jobs running at the same time. So these are some limits they're talking about. You're getting? So I'm just copying this as a reference. So hmm, after this, let me put it. So reference is here. In a developer guide, whatever we are going through this classes, all you can see there.
Okay,
So
your dev33.txt file. Where is that file? Can you get it?
no, no, I'll upload this to Google Drive and share this link to you.
Okay.
So this entire things I'll paste it to a Google Drive and then I'll give to you. Fine. Okay. So let's schedule the job now. to go to developer console. So every day you want to run, or only on the specific time that you want to run, or there's no limit here. So you can put a star here. So we only in a matter of the time here. 8 means what it indicates. So let's say put here, like these guys how they were doing it. Let's do the same way. I want to take daily you run, daily 1 p.m. you run, or I'm saying the 12. So daily you run by 12 a.m. So that is my request which I'm putting it here. So now I have to schedule them. So I'm just saying that again, string
That is 12 p.m., right?
12 a.m.
No, if it is 00, then all
Uh,
zeros is 11.
okay. So yeah, correct. Yeah, this is 12 a.m. Sorry for that. So let's put this. Run the job daily at 12 a.m. Okay. So 0 indicates yes. It's 12. I mean it's a 0 start from 12 a.m. 12 indicates it's a 1 yeah 12 p.m. it is. Then that start with 13, 14 and goes on. Okay, let's have a job ID here. What this job indicates is whatever is getting a job, so they will have a job ID for it. So like that. So system dot this is this system dot schedule. System dot schedule indicates so there's a method that you have to pass some important params. Like say what is the time that you want to run and what is the context that you want to run. For example, you want to specify some name here, like you say that run account batch at 12 a.m. I'm saying, right? So the same way you can give some name here, so that name would be reflected there. Um, run run scheduler at 12 a.m. So this is my name which I'm giving now, and then I'm putting a comma. What is the time that you want to run? So you have to spend that things here because that's a param which you're saying time. See, first thing is it's a text. The second thing is you are passing the timing, and the third thing is passing which class that you are expecting. So this is the class that you're expecting. So their object instance you have to give it. So the moment you give this, okay, they are good to run. So look at this. So I want to set the time manually from developer console, and this is the way that we do it. For doing this activity, you need to know how to set the time. So if you go to a scheduler developer guide, they say they given a timetable list. How do you make it and what particular time you have to run? So that list you have. So based on this, so you are giving the first param here on a systems.schedule. So this would return you a job ID. So that is the reason we are putting it here. See, many times in the past classes and all, if you see, you would call a class name dot method name, you pass something. So they would return something. What they're returning? They are returning a string. So that's the reason we captured in the string. Still, we are following the same paradigm. In actual class also, system.schedule and you pass this all params. So they have system class has a method called a schedule that to static method it is. So only calling class name dot method name and you're passing three params here. So one is a string param. The next is what schedule time that you're passing, and the third is what which particular class I have to schedule it. The same thing you have in UI also, you know. So you go to the UI, if you see the very important things overall, what they understand is what is the class name that you're choosing it. So object instance there it takes from. What is the job name that you wanted to do? So two things we got it from here. And the third thing is overall this execution. So they specify your time. So you are checking all of this and then generating the string to run on which time. The same three things we're sending here: name, time, and which particular class we're focusing on. So if you see logically, this also does the same. So now if you see the logic of that particular class, whether it is executed to run on that specific time. So what you have to do is, so go back here and see run scheduler at 12 a.m. So look at this. So whatever is scheduled now, it has been appearing here. And this also run at the same time. This is also run at the same time because I've given 12. Okay, it's okay, no fine. So 00 indicates there is a 12 a.m. If you put rest there, 12 p.m. would have been run through. So then you're running by 12 hours difference. Look at here, we don't have a manager. So once you schedule from the developer console, you cannot manage them straight away. You can delete them because how it will not know what custom time that you given, how I would show in the UI. So it's a crazy thing. So if you have come from here, it'll know, it'll easily open up. Okay, this is what you set, but you would have given this a random time. So where the UI only cannot be brought it up. So what if tomorrow you're doing a seconds wise? Here it is. This is start time. Flatly it says about 12:12. So they don't have 30 minutes also. See there. They're all flat time starts with 12:123, 12:22. So those you can set in 12:22 in developer console, but not here. So that's the reason they're not bring it up here in order to manage and do some change in activity. So we were able to set it from the developer console, and also we were able to set it from the UI. So any question, guys? Yeah.
So if you want to set up,
Let me record this. Yeah. So go ahead with questions with anything.
so if you want to, I want in a day, like I need to run twice or thrice, same job. So we need to create 3 job schedulers,
Yes,
same
yes,
day.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Because multiple times you want to run, so then we have to schedule the multiple times.
Good.
See, sometimes what people expect is, hey, run for me 5 times, sorry, 5 minutes every 5 minutes that you want to run. So every 5 minutes, I can run for this entire day for 5 minutes, and then I can go more on. But after the 5 minutes complete, you should start with another batch. Sorry, another scheduler. So then it's crazy thing. So we have to have multiple things here. So those are interesting things you can check. Every 5 minutes I want to run. So you can Google it out. So you can see multiple articles because you have a frequency here is 24 hours once in a day. You're scheduling this job and then you're doing it. Let's say unnecessary accounts which is created for today. I want to delete it tonight, 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. or sorry. So you delete them. Or people who got registered today for this McDonald's newly, I'm sending a thank you note or I'm sending the points added to those people. So for because of joining today, I'm sending them in a bad job all the points. That also you can do it. Not from the instant only you can do it because so we don't know how many people are joining every day. So we can run a bad job at night and then we can do it. So some people schedules the payments for the next day it should run. So they all schedule it and keep it. So maybe after 12 p.m. so they can execute and then send the funds. However, this all can be automated. So if I say every 5 minutes that you want to run, so just Google it out and see there is a solutions are there, and it will be more fun to understand this. So should I do this all this process? So those will come to know. It'll be interesting. See any other questions here?
No, good.
So you are able to see how to monitor the jobs. I think from our previous admin class, if I go and say that, so I was talking always as scheduled jobs, Apex jobs. So this is the one, guys. Apex jobs is something that you type Apex jobs, which a batch is recently run. You can see all the results there. For scheduled jobs, if at all you run a scheduled job and manually set it out or whatever you do, all the scheduled jobs would be there for your org. So these are the two scheduled jobs in your org which present. Like that, you can have a multiple. So what the saying in Salesforce according to them is, if you are running this now currently, 100 jobs it can run in one single time. Let's say at 12 a.m. So I have two jobs running here. So like this, still 98 jobs you can have running on the same time. not overall 100. It is on the specific time what you can run is 100 jobs you can run. So that is what in the limits they are talking about. You can have only, so you can only have 100 scheduled jobs at one time. Look at this. You can evaluate the current count by viewing the scheduled jobs pages in the creating the custom view of the page where programmatically acquire the cron job. So cron trigger is the one programmatically will see what are their current scheduled jobs are running or how many Apex jobs are running. All that you can see here in the cron trigger. So this is a class which we have. We can query select name from cron trigger. What are the detailed job that is running? All that you can check. So this gives you the job ID of which you're running it. Okay? For example, so still so far, what are the jobs that is running? You can see here. Select name from cron trigger. Okay. So the end of name. So what is that? Cron trigger job detail. It's at least will come from ID. So these are the two IDs we have. So cron job detail itself is a object, I think. So open this detail page, you will see. Oh, cron job detail does not support the request option. So generally, query the record. You can see the open detail page. You can see them, but these are the cron job details. You can't see them. So they don't allow you to open the detail page. So that means two records it's present. So if you just go to the cron trigger and then see, so what are the fields you can see them. So somewhere I could see them. Okay, objects. If I want to see the cron trigger, so this is object which have cron trigger. So I've just seen the ID, right? So you can see multiple things here. Start time, end time, state, cron expression, times triggered. So next fire time. Using this, we can query. Look at this. These are the two scheduled jobs we have done. So I have to, where did I go? I go to file and I clicked on open. I clicked on object. I choose on the object. So like that, you can select any number of objects. Like say account you want to select, you can select the account. So basically, it will give you account objects fields. If you very hard to type them, ID, name, all this you do, just go here, choose description, rating, site, and then say name, type, record type ID, and then simply put a query here, and then you execute. So you should be able to get all the account records. So 38 records you have, you get all the records. If you are very bored of writing these fields, and of course you have to go all the way up to select the proper AP names, then you get this. So this is one way quickly querying the records of a random case. And you can put at the last also what is the filter that you're applying it here. So this I'm showing for random case. How do you generally do it? For a cron trigger, the same way I did it, sending the description, rating, site, whatever. Sorry, not this. Here on the top you see ID, start time, end time, state, con expression, time trigger. So one thing that this week given we know it. So from the UI which we set, right? So that is the time that is this how it generated. So they're saying that run through all the days. See, run through all the days, and it's yet to trigger. And state is it's not even started, so it's waiting state. It is waiting for the time to appear. Of course, we have start time here. We don't have end time here. In what manually set, but the UI which you set is having a manual time. So of course, the end date I given as 22nd, I think 23rd. Yeah, from 19 to 23rd, I want to run this. That's it. But we don't have end time for the manual thing which you said. Because this is how you just quickly query them and then see the results. So that is what they're saying. It you can just watch it out by frequency by just querying these guys. Whether you have 100 jobs set at the same time, so that will help you out. So these are the few limits. You can go through them. Um, I think the main basic important points that all we discussed. Yeah. So there's a class like this, and also see sometimes this guys runs a logic here. Look, let's look at this. So I was just calling the Apex class. So these guys are calling an actual logic to be run here. So what is the logic they're running here? Go query the account, which name starts with this, and update the account name this. So then what happens? Every time when the batch is running, so they query this record and they try to update this record. Getting? And they are doing an asset operations. Why? So just this checking onto the cron trigger. Hey, what is the time that we have? Time minute trigger, the next fire time. From this context of trigger, it will give me the current record which is gonna fire. So based on that, so you are getting the trigger timings of when it is required. So just you are matching with the cron exceptions. How many times it got triggered? What is the time that we given? So they are simply asserting it. So basically they are trying to run a logic here only. So this is a logic in the execute only they're doing it. As I said in our developer console to this class. What is wrong here? Yeah. Something went wrong here. Oh, so why they're not allowing you to save is if a class has been scheduled, you are not able to modify those classes. This is very important point. I was just doing the mistake this. So this class or batch or future jobs is pending in progress. So you, or this scheduled class has been scheduled. You cannot modify this class now. Guys agree?
Yeah.
If a class has been already scheduled, you cannot modify them. So that's a nice use case we see now. I just generally whatever the developer console I put it right. I just copy here so that when you open a class that you will see that okay this is how we schedule it. But the background that we have scheduled this class, so you cannot modify a class which is already scheduled. So it's in progress state. So anyway, I have added here, so you can just check them here. Otherwise, we are good with the schedule. So any questions?
No, good.
No.
Okay. So in so schedule your job is done. So let me do with the future methods. So future method is something that when we would execute a future method indicates something I want to run. Not but now, maybe in a future state. So of course, these all are scheduling some time, or of course they are doing some batch activity to run on some specific time. Yes, we do this. But if you want to run the future methods on specific time, yes, it's not specific time in the sense like so you just fire and forget them. So you don't expect the results to be part of them. So when I'll tell you when all we can use this. Let's say you are running a program. Let's say it could be a trigger, and the trigger want to do an integration call. So a trigger cannot do a insert or update activity, and parallel it cannot do an integration call. So they will say that mixed DML errors, sorry, uncommitted work pending. They will give it to you. So the only solution for the future method is so to avoid this, they would run a different transaction and then help you out. So let me make some clear points so that you will understand. Future methods. Always the future method would be annotated with the rate future, or if you specify that the future method would have a call out, let's say integration. So this is general future method you indicate. So if a future method is having has a call out, let's say you are calling an integration there. So we have to specify call out is equal to true. So this is a normal one where you do without a call out. If you're doing a call out, you have to specify that call out is equal to true. So what does this call out indicates? It is call out means integrations. So you do some activity, part of the activity you're trying to do some integration with third party system. So call out indicates you can run the integration logic by using REST. So it's all you wish. Let's come with the first point. So why future? Why future method required? To run the logic, of course, this is all falling under async, right? So batch apex, schedule apex, future methods, kubel apex. So these all are falling under the asynchronous jobs, asynchronous apex we call it as. So yes, of course, the logic also would run um, to run the logic when the resources are free and um, to take the transaction independently, we use it. Now, why this have to we have to do it? Why we have to take independent transaction? Yes, of course. Let's say a scenario where on update of an account, try to update the SAP related customer account. If this is the conditions that they give it, how to do it? You have on update of an account, so you try to update the SAP related customer account. Of course, the Indian Salesforce account and SAP account, they would have a difference by at least one common things would be there. In Salesforce, we say it as an external ID. External ID is the one which indicates, okay, we are connecting from a Salesforce to our SAP system. Something like you think as unique key, so which can establish the connection between the self account and then SAP related account. So I'm just saying the key to identify, okay, these are both the same account. So what in external ID you will have? SAP account record ID you will have. Good, no? So in Salesforce you see something like ABC as an account ID. In SAP you see something random this way. But what to do is in our external, this is simply an SFID. You think SFID is ABC. This is SAP ID. But this both guys are not matching. So what you have to do is, so where the records are flowing from, so you should have a common external keys that to be added. So I say SAP external ID. So I have this number here. So this field is created in Salesforce, guys. So this field is created in Salesforce. I just copy whenever the record is getting updated. I'll just pull this all this ID here so that I know. So this ABC SFID and then external ID, these are both our same account. So when I make an update to this particular account, so all the way I have to go to the SAP external ID to this number. I need to update the record value there. So getting, and even the SAP ID also they will have SFID mapped. Even these should also have some ID like this in order to make some reference. Okay, this values is coming from ABC only, and update to this record like that it is. So that's how we try to match the system. Okay, this is your ID and this is our ID. Okay, this is your ID and this is our ID. So exchange of informations can happen very neatly if this all is set. Okay. Now on update of an SF account, I try to update the SAP related customer account. If I say from this, go update to the relevant account, I'm saying here. So this it is an activity you have to do periodically. On every time of an account, where do I do it? On every update of an account, where do I do it? So I need to fire a call out. So to this scenario, if we don't have future methods, what will happen? If we don't have future method, what will happen? The crazy thing is, it'll say on every update we're trying to fire a call out, it'll say uncommitted work is pending. So what do you mean by uncommitted work? You are in a trigger program. The trigger program is yet to be executed and yet to save to the database. First option that only didn't do, you are firing a call out. So I would say this is uncommitted work. Please go make a different transaction, it says. See, you are updating an account, that is one transaction. The same transaction, if you're trying to fire a call out, so what it indicates? Firstly, that record itself is not saved. How can you go to the third party systems and you update a record? So both the things cannot be done at the same time. Both the things cannot be done at the same time. So you need to have a different transaction to run in. To run a different transactions, we require a future method so that we will avoid this uncommitted work pending. So another state, so where you have a um, we just get this mixed DML error. So this is a different scenario. We get a mixed DML error. Why? Like say something we have a setup objects in Salesforce. Setup objects. The setup objects could be user object, user role, permissions, profiles. So these are the few objects we have. Like say setup objects. You are trying to modify this also, and a normal custom object or standard object you are modifying the same time, the same transaction. Standard or custom object. So the setup objects like these, standard objects like account, contact, and so on with so staff. These are custom objects you can think, and so on. So your mixed DML can occur when you're trying to modify both the setup objects and a standard custom or whatever objects in a single transaction. Modify or trying to create them in a single transaction. Single transaction means you write a logic within a method. You're trying to create an object, or trying to modify there, and again instantly you're trying to update this record in the same method or within the same single transaction. What you can call. So then mixed DML will come in picture. Why? Because you are mixing up setup objects and a custom object. So that it indicates as you are doing a mixed DML. So again, I have to get down this into a different transaction where I say that hey, your setup is you run in a different way, standard you run in a different way. To all the steps, we require a future method. Is getting why future is required? Say they wanted to run independently, and moreover, if you wanted to make a call out from a trigger, or you are having a mixed email error issues, so that time you have to use future calls. So basically, they run on their own time when the resources are free, and they take time independently to use it, the transactions, and moreover, no, features are something that they'll help you out to run on different transactions. So that is one point. So there are drawbacks which we can say for the future is, so don't do this. Don't call a future method in another future method. You see? So this is the biggest don't do this activity where you try to often call from one method to another method. But chaining a feature, we cannot do it. Like one method can call another method. This is not possible. And they throw an error saying that why are you doing this? Okay, you can call me saying that, hey, can a batch class be used in a trigger? No, batch class you cannot apply into a trigger. When you're trying to do an update activity, your batch cannot run. So only one guy in a trigger that which can help out is this guy's feature only. So future methods are the best for the triggers when you want to do such different transactions or something goes crazy. So future is the best friend for the triggers. So you can't use schedulable in a trigger. You cannot use a batch class in a trigger. You cannot use queueable in a trigger. So make sure future methods that you use it. Now there will be some question for us. Hey, I'm running a future method here. So after this only, I want to run the other method. For example, you're running a trigger. I agree. And the scenario which is executing here, which is, hey, update the account in SAP related account customers. Something like when I say points 5, even the 5.5 should be updated in SAP account. Okay, agreed. So this is one feature which is running. So what if you have another feature is running? What if another feature is running? Okay, then you go crazy. Anyway, feature method cannot call another feature method. So you try to run for every transaction different feature methods. And how sure we are? First, this will execute because they're saying that whenever the resources are free, that time they'll run. So can you do a chaining of this type of jobs? So this all be done in a single transaction. No? Can we do? Can you do chaining of jobs that run and that run when the resources are available and in a sequence? They run in a sequence. So you want them to run in a sequence. Yes, we have one thing for that. So that is called as Schedulable Apex. You getting this? So we want to do chaining of jobs which you want to run when the resources are available, but they want to run in a sequence. Then go to the Schedulable Apex. I think future and queuable, if we talk, asynchronous job is more overdone. So let's write a future method, one scenario, and see how the transactions can work here. If you want to replicate this mixed Dml error, of course, you try to do both the activity in the same transaction, you will get this error. And you can use a future method to avoid them. Like you are running a set of jobs, okay, run, and do a future method to run separately for this. But the biggest thing is the future method is a void method. They will not return anything to you. Do not expect a transaction where you try to execute and wait for the results. Please don't do that. So like unless the method that you executed, you are returning something. For example, here, so system.schedule, you are trying to pass 3 params. So this would return you an ID of the job. So don't expect something here in future methods. So they are fire and forget, void methods. So they don't return you anything. On the fly, they execute when the resource is available. So they update the record, and that's all. You don't get any response back saying that, hey, these are the records got updated. Guys, getting?
Yeah, little confusion, but yeah, go ahead.
So where did you get confusion?
So the DML mix, is there a scenario will the DML mix
You will get into it.
mix it? Yeah, that what is the scenario we get a mixed
Okay,
DML?
nice, nice. Yes, we will get such scenarios when, let's say, you're trying to create a user. Okay? You're trying to create a user in Salesforce. Okay, so this falls under user object where it is setup object. User object is
Right.
one of the setup objects, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So instantly creating a user and then You create, let's say, account. You're creating user in a same transaction and you're also creating an account. If you do this in a single transaction, so then you gotta get a mixed DML error. Getting?
Yeah. Okay.
So both you can't do at the same time. So if you want to create a user, please do it. So then the next instant method, whatever you're trying to create it, so it should be a separate method. So do not put this both into things. So let's open a future here. So they already given some examples. Okay, well, future methods here we are. So future class, at the rate future I said here the same way, and future method is this. You perform some operations here, and see these are time. Okay, look at this. For the mixed DML error to avoid them, you are using this. See, majority of these all what is called as long running operations. Okay, let's read this first. Future method runs in the background, asynchronous, and it is a long running operations such as callouts to an external web service or any operations that you would like to run on your own thread or its on one time. So you also use feature methods to isolate DML operations on different test object types to prevent mixed DML error. Each feature method is queued and executes when the system resources are available. So this we see. That way, your execution of your code doesn't have to wait a completion of long running operation. A benefit using feature method is that some governor limits are higher, such as socket query limits and heap size limits. This is one otherwise. Yeah. Now, where did you get these mixed DML errors? Let's see there. Hmm. So insert user with a role. So you are inserting a user. Inserting user with non-null role must be done in a separate thread in DML operations on other objects. So this example in the future indicates. So it has been causing a DML mixed DML error. Okay, let's see this. So look at this. You are inserting user here, and there's a role also you're trying to create. Let's come back here. So which are the subject type records? Just a minute. That's specific. Okay, separated is an operation. Example user feature method. Okay, let's put this way. Setup objects in Salesforce. See, setup objects are something. Let's talk about this. Setup objects something that where you have these profiles, permission sets, all it indicates. So these are all setup objects. So business process, clean rule, compact, custom tab, field set, flow, record type, user. You are a present user, to retrieve the sample. Okay, user is also there here, setup objects. So role, these are setup objects. So one among the setup objects we have, see profiles also we have. So this is all I was talking about setup objects. So you can't do a setup objects insertions or modification on the same transactions. You cannot do a non-setup activity. So this is what I was referring here. Um, Setup objects are those who interacts with the metadata like user profile and layout. All other objects like say standard and custom are non-setup objects. So this is the correct point. Hmm. So one important note is that we cannot perform a DML on the setup and non-setup object in the same transaction. The workaround is that you need to do an asynchronous request, which is future method, or use a batch as it runs in one system context. So why we can't run a batch when I say here in a scenario where we're talking here is, so I'm using a scenario where called as trigger. In the trigger and update activity, I cannot run such what do you say? Triggers cannot use future method. Sorry, triggers can use a future method, but triggers cannot use batch method, bar batch apex. So that's the reason I was talking about triggers here, where you can use features. On the mixed DML error, in order to avoid this, not only future, you can also have a batch apex. That is what he's saying. And the important context we are talking is do not mix up setup and non-setup. All the setup objects where you try to manually configure, user you created, profile you configured, and layouts you configured. These all are configuration setup things. But account and custom or whatever the standard and custom objects all deals with the records which is going to have it. And we say them as non-setup objects. So do not mix these two things in a single transaction. If so you do it, then the mixed DML error occurs. So to avoid that, they're saying that use a feature or batch. So generally all people would be using future by because they run a different transaction. So batch is when you required, when you wanted to run by chunk, you require a batch, unless and until it's not required. So for future, if you want only this set of records to be run, like how on the other methods you're running, selecting the record and updating the record. Same thing can be applied in the future. But in a batch, what it is, again, it goes by chunk records. So whether to have a bulk record to be updated, then you can use batch there, or else not required. Batch not be used often unless you process the bulk records. So the point here is do not mix up non-setup and setup. So so there is the issues will resolve. If we don't do that, yes, of course we will get a DML error. So then we have to face a problem. So let's see what error we get if we error mixed DML. This is how the errors would look like. Typically this one. If you are mixing on the same transaction, something like this error would occur, saying that mixed DML operations on setup object is not permitted after you update a non-setup object, vice versa. Getting this? So putting contact was an object user, all whatever you do in a single object that will cause an issue. So again, they're saying the workaround is feature. So you can use them. The Salesforce article which talks about mixed DML, I think I'll copy this link. Article says very good. So I would copy here as a for a mixed DML error. So this article indicates very clearly why this operation comes. So sometime your mixed DML operations occurs on a record or process builder or some validation, or you're trying to do some third party. So whatever you do it, all you're trying to impact the both setup and non-setup at the same time. So then this may cause you an error. See in one of the examples, they're trying to do update onto the authorization registration, and they're trying to update user, and again they're trying to do run a validation to launch some contact, and again they're trying to do update user. Look at this, so many activity they are doing, setup and non-setup in a single transaction. So that may be causing the issues. So this is what error exactly throws in the log. So where it says mixed DML entry activity has been occurred, It is all case to case what you do it. In a user, this guy is having validation rule. So that is the reason saying validation will fire. So on a programmatic things, when you do it, so like what we see this is the exact error that you get it. Except Dml operation not permitted. So single line this it gets set you. See, so this error exactly it gets. So what this guy says, you are updating a setup, and again you are doing the non-setup activity, or vice versa. So then you would get an error. So which are the setup objects? This guy clearly stated object permission set, queue, territory, user. This all comes under this. Okay, this link also is good. So after that example, you can refer this also. So solution is again they're coming back to hey do this using a future method. So look at this. Yes, of course, in a trigger, there may be a chances that you are impacting the a custom object record or a standard object record along with your setup records. Setup records is basically you're trying to update a user. Again, to impact both the guys, it's a crazy one. So make sure so you do not have put them into both the same. See, these other peoples are writing a triggers onto the trigger logic only. See, in the trigger program, they write the logic, but we should avoid them. Keep the session and then continue with that. So yeah, so what I was saying here is the future method. What we have a trigger. See how this code logic they've written. So they put all the logic inside the trigger. So this ideally this is not a best practice. You should have a separate handlers to deal them if you're writing with the triggers. So you should have a proper handler where it takes. So are you before trigger or an after trigger? You should indicate properly, and you should put the logic in right way. Getting? And if you're dealing all with these future methods, so they are trying to call this method. Look at this. Create withdrawal history. Look at this. Utils dot create withdrawal history. They're passing user IDs, and based on the user IDs, you're getting here them, and you're trying to process an active, update or do some activity here. So by this way, you're trying to avoid the setup and non-setup activity. So you should have a see, it's very simple. The methods are very same. Like you have public static void or some other. You just indicate on the top at the rate future. That's it. So this indicates you this method should be running a different transaction. That's it. You see a method. There are a couple of methods you written, right? So otherwise, if you go to the previous so many classes, we have Apex classes. So if you have this method is written on the top, you just go same add them as at the rate future. That's it. That method would be a future method. And moreover, they should be void. You cannot have a return type. So future method you define and you can have void that is still enough. So let's try to do a simple at the rate future for any random method. We try to add it, whether to accept it. Why it says error. Reason behind them is so they cannot support the type of map. Should be very easy or very careful here. Future methods have some input params defined only which they can accept with. Something is like primitive data types. You can take an ID, you can take a list, simple things only they take it, but they do not take like maps and all. So when you come to your where's that feature? Yeah. So control F. Let's talk about params. Do they mention the specified parameters must be primitive data types such as arrays of primitive data types or collection of primitive data types. Methods which future condition cannot take S objects or objects as an argument. So here you are passing account as an object here. So that's the reason it's not allowing to pass you. Is it? So your input parameter should be flat enough. Let's say collection is fine, but do not pass anything like this as objects. Go to any sample advanced controller. So public static, do we have anywhere void? Public static void, create account, the red feature. Whether you pass, you don't pass. Oh, so this is updating an account. Apex job has been a batch, future jobs are pending in a progress. Scheduled classes has been jobs pending in a progress. There is account scheduler class. Why this is impacting here? This is indicating yes. Yeah. So this should work out. There was something different error. So do you see this? No errors here. So if you have a simple future method to indicate public void create account, it's still more than enough. So do not pass an S object. That is what they're saying here. Otherwise, you're good. Okay, fire and forget generally will have this. Okay, already I've put this something. I didn't see this. Future method or batch class or cable, they are having void method, so they broadcast them simply. So at the rate future method, this is. Now if I wanted to call this class name, that method name, look at this. I don't pass anything, just I'm trying to get an account called as Albert. So control F, sorry, control E, class name. Since it's a static void, I can say dot create. So just call this simply class. Now I just wanted to show you um, a debug log here. Look at these logs. I want to clear all these logs. So let me run this method. So that would indicate a future method. So sample advanced control dot create account. I made that particular method as a future method and execute this. If you're running a future method, so that particular method should having a future handler here. And you can debug them and check. So account record is got created. So account name is Albert. So it does the same operation, but what it happens is, so if you have a future method in your class, so your logic would run and their transaction also would be different. So how do you track whether the future jobs run or not? Again, you have to come to Apex jobs. So Apex job will show you what are we scheduled, what the batch Apex is run, and what a future method is run. All it show. Okay, and everyone they will have a job ID. So which particular method that you run, even that also they show. Okay, so this is simple feature I want to show. So tomorrow I'll have a little more coverage on the future methods and Qbal Apex. So then we'll wind up on to the asynchronous process. Any questions?
No.
No.
So tomorrow what I'm thinking is to start early now, like 1 hour prior I want to start. Something like today we have 7:30 we're starting, right? So we're gonna start by 6:30. So would it be okay for you guys?
That will be good for me.
So what about you, Tushira?
I'm okay. It's like 6 o'clock for me
6 o'clock in
in
the
the
evening.
evening. Yeah.
So is it okay for you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm fine.
Okay.
So, how long do you think each class will last? Like for 1.5 or 2 hours?
So it should go for 1.5 hours, minimum. 6:30, 6 o'clock. If 6:30 if I start, then I should wind up by 8 o'clock my time.
Okay.
So I shouldn't take much, but because too many things are like in one class also. Others who are viewing the recording, for them it will be
Yeah.
a huge one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make sure 1 hour to 1 hour and 1.5 hour. So we're gonna cover by topic by topic. So yesterday we covered batch, today we have schedule, and then we little touch base of the future. Tomorrow future with Apex, sorry, Qbal Apex. So that's how this whole things we're covering in 2 3 days. So like that each and every topic will go 3 days, 4 days like that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. So we'll see tomorrow. So there are a lot more to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.